Why do you play Melee? Is it because of the adrenaline that comes with a Game 5 set? Or is it because down airing someone with Falco feels dope? Or maybe it's the drive to push the meta in new interesting directions? Or maybe it's because you desperately want to be the best in your state? Or it's because you're trying to make a combo video out of everyone you play? Or is it because there's someone you have to beat? Or is it deeper than that? Does the word Melee inspire a feeling inside of you that you just can't put into words? It's like a video game, but it's also this shared experience felt throughout every person at the Tuesday Night Weekly. It's the reason you purchased a plane ticket to travel across the world multiple times. It's this fucking indescribable feeling of being at home no matter where you are, while also being everything you've trained for previously. Sure, yeah, Melee is a video game, but Melee is also our friend group, our motivation to craft our skills, and provides multiple notes on our professional resume. At some point, throughout the course of entering and becoming a member of the scene, something happens. It might be 5 minutes into your first tournament, it might be the 4th or 5th weekly you go to, or it might be doom scrolling on Twitter with nothing but bad intentions, but there's a point where you realize, shit, I like these people. I like coming to this venue not just because Melee is the best video game in the world, but because these people are actually cool. This community is centered around one of the most fun and original fighting games that just so happened to have been released 20 years ago, but the legendary players who have graced this scene are just as tied to it as Fox McCloud is. At some point throughout your long journey in this community, you will find a group of friends who you like hanging out with just as much as you like playing Melee with, and that feeling wrapped up in a bow is Melee crews. Crews have been found throughout every single era that Melee has lived through, and crew names have consistently echoed off the walls of local Melee venues everywhere. For many different reasons, these are the groups that continued or started this type of camaraderie in Melee. Can't you feel your heart beat fast? I want this to last. And here's Allston Melee's 10 crews that left an impact in SSBM's history. Shouts out to Matt.Zeb for the video suggestion. Subscribe for weekly Melee content because just do it. Just literally hit that stupid annoying red button next to Allston Melee because it genuinely makes an impact in our stupid annoying lives. The fact that we are showing you a YouTube analytics page right now is so dumb. And number 10, the Blade Breakers. Join us as we spin you a tale of the wonderful world of 2007. Innocence and endorphins are flowing through the brains of any human playing Halo 3's campaign for the first time, and although we can't play What I've Done by Linkin Park, we can play the music video Flipped, Distorted, and Stretched, and honestly, that probably paints the picture better. 2007 was one of the best years for video game releases ever, had some incredible movies, TV shows, and music throughout, but you know what else 2007 had? Fucking Beyblades, bro. Beyblades are dope. I honestly don't know what the script says right now, but I can assure you that this commercial is so sick. Anyway, so Blade Breakers were a New England crew in 2007, inspired by a fictional group in the Beyblade TV show of the same name. While the Blade Breakers' inception would be as simple as Boxman, an old school player from Maine, making a fire Smashboards post that included a couple friends, the Blade Breakers would expand wide beyond Maine's local scene. With the crew catching fire in the Beyblades of any of the current top New England players, a couple Mass Madnesses later, the Blade Breakers were a worldwide affair. Going from players like Dark, Dudusai, Zoso, and MDZ to Cactuar, Court, PC Chris, and Mango, the Blade Breakers, while kind of being a total meme, might just be the most stacked crew on this video. And the entire point, the call to action for this crew, the reason why Mass Madness' top 8 is completely made up of people who call themselves Blade Breakers, truly was the fact that by joining this crew, you got a really dope custom-made Smashboards banner. And those banners are just as badass now as they were in 08. While unfortunately most of the OG banners made by Boxman aren't around anymore, a couple of the updated ones made by Dazwa, an OG member, are still floating around. The Blade Breakers would end off with over 40 members, consisting of some of the strongest Melee players and established community members around, and eventually soft disbanded around 2010 and put down their Beyblades. This unbelievably stacked crew may have been fully formed around nothing but a funny joke, but never forget, when you love something as much as blading, nothing else seems to matter. Number 9, Crack Shack. While most crews talked about will be stories from the early 2000s, Crackshack was created in a post-rollback world, and at that, a post-doubles rollback world. Getting its name from a meme about metaphorically smoking crack and playing doubles, name aside, Crackshack is one of the newest and strongest crews entering Melee today. This crew goes pretty damn deep in terms of members, but let's just do a quick highlight of their active roster and origin stories. BZIM has been consistently beating top players with a dinosaur and would bring Crackshack to the world with Amity, a strong Pikachu player in their own right, but also someone who is a huge help in organizing East Coast netplay events. What started out as BZIM throwing all the homies into a Discord group message would evolve into a growing niche community inside of a niche community with Amity's help. And in an era that kind of lacks crews, we're big fans of the energy that they have been bringing back. And they haven't even repped their crew at an IRL tournament yet. With other OG members like Tyler Swift, Zuppy, Justice, Poppy, B-Bats, Travioli, Dope, Faust, and tons of other players that you will soon hear about, this crew's full and updated lineup could take a whole damn video. We admire Crackshack for bringing back that 2007 Melee Crews feel and being a crew full of players making waves and brackets in these unprecedented times, but we more so appreciate their ability to still find camaraderie when we only have online brackets and Discord calls. Crackshack's voice chats have folks lining up outside just to get down and are known for live streaming tournament runs, sometimes turning fully degenerate, players and all. Crackshack, name included, wholeheartedly have the same vibe as many other crews born and crafted in the era of Smashboards. If you happen to find yourself in a doubles bracket against a Crackshack team in 2045, be ready for not just a prepared team, but an entourage yelling behind them too. Number 8, Team Oxy. While we specifically left esports teams or groups that were more organizational than they were homeizational, this crew is a special case. Team Oxy is a SoCal-based group created by the lovable and sometimes loathsome Crimson Blur. Starting around 2012, Team Oxy would bring consistent high-quality events to SoCal for the first time in a long time, with bangers of events such as Kings of Cali and the SSS series. Team Oxy's lineup consists of renowned tournament organizers like Dendy and Schreichelman and many other talented people behind the scenes making locals look like majors, but this list also has some established players on it. Wieners, Sung, Matt, and J66 have all been featured on the top end of SoCal's extremely hard to get on power rankings, and even deeper, Sung has won tournaments with multiple characters, sometimes over players like S2J and Lucky, and might have even had a heavy hand in bringing shield dropping to the masses. Check out this Melee Stats article for some more Sung coverage, but this crew would also take credit for bringing back a staple event held in venues across the world. Taking the idea from a 2007 local hosted by What's Up Guys, you already know it's me, Kira, Team Oxy would popularize Arcadian tournaments, which are events barring ranked players from entering to encourage low to mid-level players to compete. While this may have been a fresh revamp back around 2013, the idea of hosting an Arcadian in your region blew up beyond belief. Nowadays, Arcadians have been hosted in probably every single state in the US and multiple countries across the world. Team Oxy has been a positive force in SoCal 9 years later, continuing to host both impressive reoccurring and one-off events such as TMT and Blood for Blood, as well as being a strong force behind the curtains at events like MLG, EVO, and Red Bull's Melee events. Team Oxy has consistently brought in new faces outside of Melee, been nothing but a positive force for SoCal's reoccurring events, and we appreciate what Crimson Blur did for Melee. Number 7, Team Ben. You know what none of these other crews have? White Castle. Team Ben got its start in Melee around 2003 when a group of kids from Maryland decided that they were going to do what no crew had ever done before. Drive. Team Ben was immediately established as that group of people who will drive 4 hours for a Melee tournament in an era where it was not as common to do so. With an original team lineup that consists of Wife, Husband, Oro, and Bach, you always had a chance of seeing Team Ben all over the world. Named in honor of a close childhood friend who tragically passed away, Team Ben was at the very least a triple threat, as members would consistently do well at singles bracket at MLGs, the newlyweds husband and wife being a top-level doubles team, and Bach pioneering the type of videos that we hadn't seen in the community before. From 2005 to 2007, Husband would travel and attend every event possible and would consistently be found in the top half of the biggest tournaments to ever happen in the golden age of Melee. Wife, having similarly impressive and constant high-placing performances at MLG events, would become a B-list Smash celebrity because of his incredible storytelling ability shown in the Smash documentary and the book Team Ben: A Year as a Professional Gamer. We've covered Bach previously in our 10 unsung heroes of the SSBM community vid, but Bach's footage were so many people's initial look into this community and the first time you got to see what the people dominating tournaments were actually like in real life. Over the years, Team Ben would feature and eventually remove members that were strongly tied to other crews, and might have even had a rivalry with a couple future crews that are coming up on this list. Notably grabbing a White Castle sponsor during their peak of their travel, and shortly featuring Neo, a legendary low-tier player, Team Ben's place in Melee crews is undeniable, not just because of their tournament placements, but because of what they accomplished in this community. With Bach's videos still playing a huge part in being able to put a picture to these old school events and being a talented commentator you can see featured at any major level event today, Team Ben is a couple of accomplished and talented high school friends from Maryland who just so happen to be some of the most crucial people involved in the golden age of Melee. Number 6, July 10th, 2005, South Bend, Indiana. After months of excitement brewing on Smash boards about the tournament that was about to come, attendees would wake up in scattered parts of northern Indiana for the biggest Melee event to ever happen at the time. FC3, hosted by Ship of Fools, would be crowned the best tournament ever, and after a shot in the dark request on the TO side, it would become home to one of the most legendary crew battles to ever happen in Melee. With crews representation fielding teams for the Midwest, South, East, and West regions of the US, and some of the strongest players around for each crew, there was a score to settle at FC3. In an era where pride really meant everything, the East Coast would show drastic improvement from the last time a similar cruise event took place, and shockingly defeat the West Coast crew in finals to prove themselves as the best region in the world. The 10 members who were part of the East Coast crew were compiled from some of the best players from multiple fabled crews. While the previously talked about Team Ben was also on the roster, the Ninja Turtles, an OG mass crew that is unfortunately snubbed from this list, also played a huge part in the East Coast success, with both Crazy Jones and Hayato overperforming. With Ninja Turtles soon establishing themselves as New England's real crew, with other acclaimed players such as Unknown Force and the legendary Korean DJ, Ninja Turtles was absolutely a formidable crew. But a couple other East Coast crews would be the one to mainly fill up these spots, one of those being number 6, H2IL. H2IL are one of the most unforgettable groups of Melee players to ever call themselves a crew. Team Haha You Lose out of Maryland was one of the main forces behind the East Coast win at FC3, taking 15 stocks with only 3 members, closed out by Azin putting the nail in the coffin for the West Coast crew. While Chillin' Dude 829, Shootat, and Azin's legacy will never be forgotten because of things like the Smash documentary, and all 3 players would take first place finishes at different MLG events, we wanted to shine a light on the not so talked about members of H2IL. Andin is one of the pioneers of Jigglypuff's game plan and Melee's grassroots conception. Being able to perform similar rest combos in 2002 as the ones kids on NetPlay are screaming about today, Andin would help popularize rest setups along with a couple other Puff players we might get to know later. Andin was known as being Azin's original practice partner and someone routinely found in grand finals of tournaments that old school players call old school tournaments. Continuing with Chinesa, also known as Chainsaw Travis or just Travis, this legendary member of the Melee community is one of the most overlooked members of H2IL. Being one of the only members to be added after 2002, Travis has still been around for a minute. Top 8ing at both Bomb and Pound's first iteration, Pound 1 would see a top 8 with only Team Ben and H2IL members. Travis also gets major credit for being the person who created and hosted the first Pound tournament, a series crucial in Melee's lifetime and is still going strong today. Travis would go on to be a top force in East Coast Brawl tournaments, and besides Chillin' and Chew, is one of the most active members to this day. With showings like top 64 in Melee at SmashCon 2016 and 33rd at DreamHack Atlanta 2018, members of this crew have made it far in Melee brackets for almost 20 years. The tournament performances from final members J-Tanic and Mild Sauce would be few and far between in the golden age of Melee, and practically non-existent in the current age, but for being members of this legendary crew, they no doubt deserve the mention. H2IL had an era ruling over Melee singles and doubles brackets alike at a crucial time in Melee's life, and at any tournament, you could expect the top 3 members of this crew to place top 3 at the tournament. But although their star stories are illustrious, they weren't the only members there for the full ride. H2IL, with their stories preserved through their Smash documentary, has continued to inspire many people to join this community. Number 5, Deadly Alliance. Filling the spots for a decent chunk of the East Coast crew at FC3, while Deadly Alliance were not the first people to call themselves a Melee crew, they were absolutely one of the first people that made you want to start your own Melee crew. Deadly Alliance were known as the best players in New York City, the cool people at the tournament, and are truly some of the godfathers of Melee. With Wes creating the crew in 2002 and enlisting players like Mike G and Killa OR, all 3 players I just fucking named have literally invented characters in their own right. While the crew goes much deeper than these 3 players, we wanted to highlight them because of their impacts in these characters. Starting off with crew creator Wes, the Samus player would popularize multiple aspects of the bounty hunter, such as general edgeguarding follow-ups, out-of-shield options, and even the super wave dash. But Wes would also be responsible for the DA dash, which was literally someone popularizing pivoting in 2003. While Wes's Samus would stand almost untouched on the East Coast until the days of H2IL and Mewtwo King, Wes would also be one of the driving forces to bring tournaments to NYC. Along with helping out with the local events hosted, Killa OR from Harlem would prove himself as much more than just the homie who helps carry the CRTs. By the way, you are so important, homie who carries the CRTs to tournaments. Keep on trucking. But Killa OR's Jigglypuff is absolutely one of the puffs that we alluded to earlier that helped push this character. Popularizing rest setups still used today and showing the ability to combo characters to death with or without rest, Killa OR would consistently top 32 MLG events and become one of the only Melee players to ever be sponsored by Major League Gaming themselves. Finally, with consistent overperformances at almost any event he entered from 2004 to 2006, Mike G is low-key credited by some as inventing Peach in Melee. Mike G's Peach in the early 2000s could still give a couple tips to your local Peach players entering today, and this player really showed multiple aspects of this character at the top level for the first time. With other legends soon taking over the blueprint or helping expand it, such as Crazy Jones, Wife, and eventually Armada, Mike G was seriously one of the first Peach players to reach grand finals of a stacked event. Deadly Alliance has been going strong since all the way back in 2002 and has lists of other past or active members, some of whom completely specialize in the newer versions of Smash. Recently, with the release of Rollback, Killa OR and Wes have been playing Melee more than ever, and you can find them on their streams linked on screen. Deadly Alliance has helped push the meta for countless characters in Melee and was truly one of the first crews that were just as talented as they were homies. For being some incredible players who changed this scene as we know it today, Deadly Alliance are the perfect definition of a Melee crew. Number 4, Punch Crew. While a somewhat Canadian-based crew has already been mentioned with Crack Shack, Canada's crew's legacy goes deeper than any other region. It is very likely that Melee's early crews were totally inspired, down to the name crew and all, from the legendary group that called themselves the Punch Crew. Punch Crew, playing Smash since 64's release, featured Mike Monkey, Jared, Nick, and Aaron, 4 people who exist in the community even before gamer tags were really commonplace. This group created some of the first Melee content available on the internet and are credited with igniting the spirit of crews in the hearts of this community. The Punch Crew would point their camera at the CRT, play Melee, and do something that no one else had yet done: commentary. As much as Punch Crew were notable for their skill, with Mike Monkey defeating Chaotic and Killa OR at a 2007 major, Punch Crew were as notable for being some of the first to replicate the feeling of why we play Melee in glorious 240p resolution. This shared and relatable feeling of friendship would evolve into Punch Crew being some of the first people to ever bring a camera inside a Melee venue. This crew is, in all senses of the word, innovators. Unfortunately, due to countless uploads never making it over from the DC++ to YouTube switch, or just being flat out deleted, tons of the original Punch Crew videos are no longer available, from combo videos to some of the first in-person tournament footage. As of the last apparent update from an acquaintance of the crew in 2006, Punch Crew have pretty much all moved on from Melee, with Mike being the most likely to sit down and play, and other members even being openly embarrassed about the videos and accomplishments that we just try to give so much praise to. Punch Crew was the first time Melee content was viewed as something that could be funny and entertaining as opposed to just informative or a nasty combo, and inspired countless crews to start their own, with the golden age of Melee being home to so many iconic groups. For being one of the most influential crews to ever be a part of Melee's history, and single-handedly being the reason that we use the word crew so commonly in Melee today, Punch Crew are fucking legends of Melee. Number 3, DBR. Link, Captain Falcon, Dr. Mario, Jigglypuff, Fox, Captain Falcon again. We are not listing the ingredients to a Powerpuff Girl. These characters, and honestly so much more, all had their combo game put on full display for the first time by DBR. The IHOP crew out of Illinois is credited with being some of the first people to record in-game tournament footage via VHSs, but Death by Robots out of Concord, California is responsible for some of the first Melee footage to make you question the validity of your own skill in Melee, inspiring countless people to pick up a GameCube controller or seek out competition at tournaments for the first time, showing new heights to the characters called mid-tiers in competitive play and nasty combos with the ones thought as top tier. The members of DBR would showcase a world of Melee that was truly unseen to the general public at the time. DBR's combo videos would routinely go viral, even in the days of DC++ being the Melee standard, and this list of players practically all had a hand in popularizing aspects of the characters that they played. DBR's videos were inspiration for people searching for a main, and to this day have mostly held up and would rank highly on a combo video tier list regardless of legacy or nostalgia. These players would routinely be some of the peak of competition found throughout Melee's early beginnings, with players like King showing that the work of other Puff mains before him was not for nothing, and he himself would become a huge inspiration for the sprouting Puff mains that would come to rule the world. DBR, while being driving forces of innovation for many characters, would create a branch in the community that is still thriving today. On July 10, 2009, after months of promotion, DBR held Genesis 1 at the Ramada Inn, a tournament series that has maintained its legacy and is truly one of the staple events tied to Melee today. While Death by Robots might not exist in the same form as it once did in 2009, some members of this crew are very much still around today. Bobak, or Side Effects back in the combo video days, would be one of the head TOs of the event in 2009 and is still one of the head TOs of Genesis to this day. Through their combo videos and through their tournaments, DBR showed us one thing: that there was more Melee to be played. For being an inspiration for countless characters and being responsible for what this community has called Melee's favorite tournament, DBR have continuously been powerhouses of Melee and created waves that are still moving pools today. Number 2, Ship of Fools. By early 2004, Ship of Fools would be one of the many crews sprouting up in the Midwest, but this crew led the charge in many fronts, not just in Midwest Melee, but the community at large. This crew was 6 acclaimed members who would be considered some of the best in their era, some of the most inspirational TOs to ever host a Melee tournament, and overall positive forces on this scene with effects still lingering to this day. This crew featured 2 sets of siblings, the brothers Iggy and Joshu, and the trio of Kish brothers, who were all extremely important members of Indiana Melee, and at that, players who had all won a semi-major or major tournament in the golden era. Iggy won a semi-major Midwest tournament playing Peach in the early 2000s. Joshua Sheik Main won the biggest tournament to happen in Ohio at the time. Kish Squared won Show Me Your Moves 2, the longest running Smash tournament to date with Fox and Sheik. Kish Cube took first at Flame of Bowser 3 with Sheik over established Midwest legends. And finally, Kish Prime would place first at the Midwest Melee circuit in 2006. After adding Tink, the final 6th member credited with being the most technical, winning tournaments past the teammates' prime, the full roster had been filled. After years of being a positive force in Melee, on January 15, 2005, after years of complications, Daniel Kish, aka Kish Cube, would tragically pass away due to heart issues at the young age of 19. Kish Cube was known as his friends as a lovable and funny guy, and was known as an early Smashboards memer by his acquaintances. He would slam dunk on anyone who took the bait and replied to his all caps help posts, and similarly was on a quest to conquer and destroy all of the avatars of Smashboards. Popularizing no avatar money matches, if Kish Cube won said money match, you would have to delete your Smashboards avatar forever. After beating Midwest hero Dark Rain in a no avatar money match, Kish Cube would have his biggest name to date, but quote, upon learning that Dark Rain didn't actually have an avatar to remove, he became crestfallen and ceased his quest. Taking first place at Flame of Bowser 3, Kish Cube defeated old school legends like DSF, Eddie, and Dreffen to shockingly take first place at the event. Kish Cube was as legendary of a player as he was at making people smile. For having incredible tournament performances and even conquering Ken's avatar for a brief moment, Kish Cube's legacy in this scene is nothing but positive. Rest in peace to a Melee legend, Daniel Kish, aka Kish Cubed. Kish Prime, one-third of the Kish brothers, is a legendary Jigglypuff player who is credited with inventing Puff's Rising Pound and helping establish the character very early on. But he is also listed as an inspiration for many of the organizers who have hosted some of the biggest tournaments in our modern era. Responsible for the Melee FC series, one of the most important tournaments in Midwest and Melee in general during the Golden Era, Kish Prime was truly one of the first TOs to design tournaments with the people going 0-2 in mind, and 4 FC events would set records as the biggest Melee event to ever happen. Kish Prime's early innovations with a stage list would pave the way to a rule set that MLG would adopt and eventually transform into the one we know today, with the help of organizers like Sheridan, Plank, and Smasher Bob. With the help of the crew, Kish Prime and Ship of Fools tournaments would accomplish things like fighting back on intolerable language, hiring security way before it was common at Smash tournaments, and really made an effort to provide a safe space for everyone. In an era where regrettably slurs were commonplace, Ship of Fools hosted some of the most innovative, welcoming, and important tournaments in Melee history. Ship of Fools is not just a huge inspiration for all of us at Allston Melee, not just a driving force of motivation for the organizer hosting your favorite Melee major today, but the blueprint for anyone attempting to make this community a place you want to be proud of. Big thanks to Kish Prime for helping us out and answering a few of our questions in such detail in a world where we are desperate for credible information on 2003 Melee. A single entry in a top 10 video could never do this crew justice, and we truly hope to one day give Ship of Fools the full coverage that they deserve. From our side of the computer to yours, a deep, honest thank you to Ship of Fools for what you did for the community that we all love so much. And our number one crew, Melee It On Me. The people who showed that we can give Melee something better, the group who improved countless aspects of a tournament, the people who helped make the thing that you and I call our community a place we can be proud of, Melee It On Me in some way has most likely impacted your journey in Melee. Melee It On Me was born in 2012 out of a community-wide debate stemming from revival of Melee 5, in a similar fashion to a more recent controversy involving a replayed set with Chudat and Leffen, a winner's final set at ROM 5 that ignored Dave's stupid rule would take place, followed by a scrambled rule call, and a top 3 where 2 out of the 3 players almost flat out refused to play. Community member, TO, commentator, esteemed video maker, top player, and a laundry list of other cool footnotes soon to come, Bobby Scar created a Facebook group called Melee It On Me and hosted a podcast with Cactuar, Prague, and Sheridan under the same name soon after. Melee It On Me would clearly lay out their purpose within 2 minutes of episode 1, to educate the community and become a hub of credible information, to discuss Melee's current affairs and generate hype, and greatly improve the communication regarding backroom decisions that affect the community. With Toph and Tafo joining in 2013, Melee It On Me would consist of some of the most front-facing members involved with backroom decisions. It would be a pillar of truth and motivation for any member of this community. Sponsoring players shortly after, Melee It On Me existed like no other sponsor does to this day, and after adding SFAT and Pew Pew as the first players to the group, they would make their intentions clear. Melee It On Me, last sponsoring a player in 2016, has existed as the middle ground for players looking to become pro in Melee, with a transparent goal to get players onto established esports teams with their connections in the industry. Meowm's competitor alumni is practically all players who made it onto real esports teams. On January 8th, 2013, the biggest FGC tournament in the world, EVO, announced a donation drive for breast cancer research. After clear favorite, fan-made My Little Pony Fighting Is Magic would receive a cease and desist, Melee It On Me, now with a couple more community members added, would inspire hope into the hearts of Melee players. Melee It On Me truly did lead the pack in terms of gathering the troops and making this moment in Melee's lifetime as impactful as it was. With Bobby Scar at the helm of a Skype call, Meowm encouraged everyone possible to do their part in getting the word out. After a back-and-forth race that included hard-fought competitor Skullgirls, Melee would claim victory with a final number of more than $94,000 raised for charity, and Melee It On Me had shown the community-building skills necessary to grow this scene. And then, 4 days before EVO 2013, Nintendo sent a cease and desist letter to the EVO organizers in charge, instructing them to cancel the events tied to their property. And after an internal back and forth, Nintendo would allow the tournament to happen, but without a stream or recordings being done for Melee. In one of the biggest f***ing slaps in the face that we have ever received, Nintendo canceled the biggest Melee event to ever yet happen after the community raised $94,000 for breast cancer research. Following the announcement, the Melee community refused to take our ball and go home, and thanks specifically to a social media charge led by Prague from the Melee at On Me Facebook page, the story would go viral and soon be picked up by practically every major news outlet covering video games. The Melee community would once again organize itself just like it did months prior for charity purposes, and every social media somewhat tied to Nintendo would be flooded with questions or criticism. Only 1 day later, Nintendo would officially take backsies their cease and desist, and as we said before, July 9, 2013 was the day that this community purchased the rights to Super Smash Bros. Melee, and it was all thanks to Prague, Melee at On Me, and the folks who rallied behind them. This team is truly responsible for some of the most pinnacle moments to happen in Melee. In 2013, Nintendo created the monster that they had always feared, a competitive community strong enough to tell them no. At the end of 2013, with the team continuing to make huge strides for players to find sponsors, Melee at On Me created the SSBM rank, a top 100 list voted on by established community members based on a full year of competition. Following the list's debut, Melee would become a game where the top players of our scene would share a sponsor with established esports teams. In 2014, players at the top of Melee would finally join top tier teams, and while the accomplishment can't be fully credited to SSBM rank, it sure as hell helped out in an impactful way. In the years since, members of Melee at On Me have continued to be involved in the planning of countless majors, specifically being credited as a big help for the past Melee features at EVO, and the organizers on this team are behind practically every national level event in Melee. In 2014, possibly somewhat inspired by their dedication to their property, many members of Melee at On Me would be hired somewhat directly by Nintendo to host Smash 4's Invitational at E3. Whether it was a soft apology or a revamp at using us for their own good, Nintendo did officially acknowledge the Melee community once again, albeit for a new game. The SSBM rank is still going strong today and has been since taken over by PG Stats, but still maintaining the same OG moniker. Pretty much all members of Melee at On Me have maintained their spots in this community and are some of the most influential people tied to it to this day. While the podcast no longer happens at the same frequency it used to, the gang would reunite for 5 days of Melee, in fitting fashion, after Big House received a cease and desist for their online event. The belief that you, person sitting behind this screen right now, can be a positive force and better this community is an ideal that Melee at On Me has inspired into countless members of this scene. I, person reading this script, would not be nearly the person that I am today without the help of Meon member Matt.Zeb inspiring my path into esports and keeping Melee relevant every step of the way, and those same ideas were instilled into Matt with the help of people like Sheridan and Juggle Guy. While Ship of Fools set a bar yet unseen for what a welcoming community could look like, Melee at On Me would help make that a standard across the scene. If you believe that this community is dope, but there are things about it that can be doper, there are countless ways that you can be a positive influence. We hold Melee at On Me at the top of our crew's list because they aren't just a group of people who has been extremely crucial in this community's life, but they have inspired this community to be better. Melee is a video game, but the Melee community is a shared experience. The feeling of walking into the venue and seeing the homies, the excitement of flying to a city you've never been to with your closest friends, the feeling of losing a close set that you really didn't want to, at least one of these moments just brought a visceral memory back into your brain. At some point, after joining this community, your Melee homies and your own friend groups become blurred, because you made genuine friends from Melee. Being in a crew can mean countless things for different people. Your crew could be your motivation to get better at this game. Your crew could be the people who you rely on when the going gets tough. Your crew could be the people who you want to change the world with. But if the top of the mountain isn't big enough for me and all my homies, I'm gonna have to find a different hill to die on. We all joined this community to play Melee, but we all found something else along the way. The crews mentioned in this video include some of the most impactful people to ever call themselves a member of the Melee community, and the very least we can do is share the stories that inspired us to get this far.
My favorite crew is Habs. We hate Waz. We hate Waz. Thank you for supporting Allston Melee. If you're living in the present, head on over to smashgg/Allston Melee to check out the Allston Melee Bender, the biggest thing we've done to date. Go over to the merch shop and cop some of the sickest stuff that has ever graced the Smash GG shop. Or sign up for the slew of East Coast based events that take place on April 3rd and April 4th on BTS Smash and Allston Melee's Twitch streams. Anyway, the biggest shout out possible to the people in the Patreon holding us down and making this ship sail just a little bit smoother. Go to patreon.com/AllstonMelee to help us continue to do the coolest stuff we can. And reg now, do it. SmashGG/AllstonMelee right now, please, buy, yes. Bye.